Hello everyone, this is part 53 of What If Naruto was sealed because he was too powerful, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto's clones were basically him. They knew that they weren't and were mostly subservient to Naruto when it really mattered, like in battle, but they had his mindset, they thought like him, they had his personality. There was a part of Naruto's clone that was vastly angry with what he was seeing as he traveled through the village holding tightly to Hamiko. He transferred some of his chakra to her to help with her exhaustion, which was the equivalent of squeezing a drop of juice out of a full glass when comparing their chakra sizes. Naruto-sama, Hamiko said, still rather weak, but much stronger than she'd been in the house, please take me to Tsunade-sama. There's still a battle left to fight and our secondary defenses still need my guidance to work. She had seen one home of hers utterly decimated before. Had been powerless to do anything other than flee and hide, and even then, when all of the others that remained in Azuchiogakure stood to defend their home to the last, she was unable to. That was not the case this time. She loved this village, and even if it was a diversion meant for Toby to get to her, those fires were very real. The bee in the streets were real. The panic was real. Everyone fighting was real, and while she was no shinobi, no combatant, she was someone that could do something to protect her new home. Hamiko Kiyomizu had fortunately given herself to a master that understood her fully. Okay, Naruto said, shifting his trajectory for the time being to run along the rooftops en route to the high point of the village buildings where Tsunade would be found in the middle of wartime. You can summon your control board back to you without taking a big chunk of your chakra, right? She was still suffering from the superficial side effects of chakra exhaustion. Yes, I can. Don't be worried for me, master. I am more worried for you, she said earnestly, grabbing the collar of his root top tightly, that masked man. He was the reason for all of this. Everything that was happening today. And not just today either. Everything that had gone down with the Akatsuki, and so many things before that. He was responsible for the death of Naruto's parents. I know. The yellow-haired Junin didn't need to be told about any of this. He was already mad enough, but after seeing the village and hearing his concubine's words through his clone, after it dispelled, he would probably be angrier. Nothing more needed to be said between them as Hamiko basked in the temporary comfort that Naruto could provide until they wound up on the academy rooftop to find Tsunade surrounded by a direct Anbu guard. The Hokage quickly took notice of them and a look of surprise came to her brown eyes. Hamiko. Naruto. I thought you were still a full day out. She summoned me back when fake Madara showed up at home. Naruto said, setting Hamiko down to stand on her own feet. The real me is fighting him up there right now. Tsunade's face took on a look of shock until a grave seriousness took over and she started cracking her knuckles. Tsunade Barkin, no. You're giving me an order? Tsunade asked treacherously. No. Good answer, Naruto, but what about the rest of the village? You're his objective, Naruto. If he captures you, then he wins. The village comes first. I'm just one ninja, and I can beat him. I'm good enough. Minato was good enough. And look what still happened. Tsunade shouted, getting even her Anbu guard duty to feel a bit of apprehension at the tone of the Hokage. I almost lost you in Omegakure, and this is the man that was behind everything instead of Jiraiya's student Nagato. No, I can't let you fight this masked man. Naruto stopped trying to make his points. Tsunade was serious. That was real fear for his well-being. It never ceased to amaze him. With a village full of people that she needed to care for, she still couldn't help but think about him like that. As Hokage, that could have been a problem if it hadn't been a situation like this where he was actually a key, but he couldn't help but feel touched. He really did love that old lady-like family. Before Tsunade could keep ranting, she found herself wrapped up in a tight hug by Naruto's clone, faster than her Anbu had been prepared to anticipate. It stopped whatever she was going to say thoroughly in its tracks. Whatever she was going to say in her tea right then. He'd never hugged her before. At times she'd throw one arm around him fondly, and he'd never stop her. Sometimes he'd even lean into it. He never initiated the contact though. He was the closest thing to be family that she had left though, but she could never let herself get too attached due to their positions in the ninja system of Konoha. She was his Hokage and he was her Junin. Here she had miserably failed to keep that wall up any longer, and so had he in return. I'm going to win, Naruto's clone said only to her, unable to see her brown eyes reflecting sheer surprise. Let me do this. I'm going to beat that guy, show his face to the world, and end it. Please, you've got to let me handle this. Hamiko kept her mouth shut, as did the Anbu guards, only doing the due diligence by keeping Tsunade guard and assisting Hamiko in setting her control panel for the village defenses under her command. When I was first unsealed, that was a hard time to adjust to, and I know I was a handful when you first took over as Hokage, but you put up with me and you believed in me. Naruto clone continued to say, I'm basically grown up now, and you've got to let me take a shot. If you lose, she said, tightening her grip just a bit more in her concern. I won't lose. Before she knew it, Tsunade was holding nothing, as the clone had dispelled itself into smoke that drifted into the air. Damn him. Damn that boy. Her eyes flickered to Naruto's home on the face of the mountain that had a large tree sticking out of it and back down to the village before her that she was meant to protect. If this masked man was the center of this invasion, as Hokage she was meant to be the one facing him, even if she was a medic. She bit her lip almost hard enough to draw B before striking at the mechanical 8 trigrams drum to shift the battlefield of the city streets into the next pattern. Hamiko, focus your closer attack statues on Sector 19. The damned plant men are holing themselves up in west past the waterway and using the bridge as a choke point. Yes, Tsunade-sama, Hamiko said as she directed the intended Kamenu statues at the orders of her Hokage. She was going to believe in her master, as it was the only thing she could do for him at that moment. Please be careful, Naruto-sama. If he lost and was taken away from her, from everyone, she wouldn't know what she would do with herself. XXX. Miles behind the Hokage monument, with Naruto and Toby. As the battle had moved off of the roof of Naruto's house and farther back into the woods behind the mountain, the intensity of the fight started picking up, but no matter what Naruto tried to use to sucker Toby in, he couldn't deliver a debilitating strike with the only thing that he knew for certain would harm him, the Sennenki no Ken. This is really getting tiresome dealing with you, Toby said as he stood on a tree branch, facing Naruto who stood on another. Honestly, what do you think you're going to accomplish by fighting against me? You can't touch me. You don't have the talent. Try as you might. For all of your ninjutsu, they're useless. All I have to do is avoid one thing that I can't allow to touch me. Even with your sage mode, what can you do? What can I do? Naruto asked rhetorically, fingers twitching. Do you really think I've got nothing? Why do you think I took you away from the mountainside? You thought you were leading me away when you were running. I wanted to get some distance, because I can't do this stuff in the village. Naruto's fingers were almost impossible to see even by Sharingan standards as he blurred through hand seals with a computed practice, Futen, Hirogiri Teihen, wind release, spreading air disaster. In Sage mode, everything he did was faster, including his hand seals to the point that for his ninjutsu that required less it looked as if he hadn't even done them, and for those that required longer chains of seals, such as the most recent one, they were a blurry mess. Not only that, but in Sage mode, every jutsu was more powerful than without it. What was an awesome windstorm before became a requiem for complete devastation. Naruto's sea expanded and from his mouth he fired Category 3 Hurricane Force Wind directly at Toby, tearing apart trees at the trunks and rooting them straight out of the ground in other cases. Even if he could make himself intangible, could he stop himself from being blown away by winds that would any living being caught within it? His sense of awareness warned him that something had entered his personal zone and Naruto fell down from what he'd been standing on to avoid being from behind by Toby's hand, covered in a sharp spiraling blade made of wood. Well, at least you're attentive. In his fall from the tree limb, Naruto turned and threw several shuriken at Toby, Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Once again though, even when the several shuriken turned into damn near several hundred, Toby just seemed to ghost through them again as if he were a phantom. Fine. Kaminari Shuriken, Lightning Shuriken. Once they were high enough in the air, the shuriken began to crackle with electricity before shooting down hundreds of bolts of lightning all over the area populated by Toby. The trees that had been situated behind Naruto and had survived when he'd cleared the lands of the rest of them with his previous jutsu were struck and their tops were set ablaze as Naruto kept away and kept his distance to try and see Toby in case he escaped. You just don't get the point, do you? Turning around, Naruto's eye caught the vortex of Toby's space-time teleportation as he came out of it and delivered a punch right in his face, knocking him away with oddly imposing strength. By all means, an amused Toby said as Naruto regained his footing and faced him down again, keep throwing your best shots at me. I'm enjoying seeing what you've amassed in your little ninja handbook over the years. I mean, admittedly you haven't used anything that I can copy with my Sharingan yet, but keep going. I see I haven't taught you the true meaning of despair yet. It was remarkable, enough for Toby to admit it. Even without actively utilizing the Sharingan except in heated combat, Naruto's ninjutsu coffers were vast and dangerous in the versatility that he was allotted with his techniques. Dangerous for others that weren't him, of course. I told you I was going to take everything from you, Toby said as a small rippling vortex appeared in front of him and out flew a gigantic shuriken larger than his body, spinning at Naruto speedily like it had been fired out of a gun. Naruto avoided it, and watched it s through one of the burning trees, felling it before he looked up and saw another rippling vortex prior to large, sharp branches growing out of it to s down onto him. Mokuton, Chikaren no Jutsu, would release. Underground Roots Jutsu. Upon missing him and s into the ground, the branches formed anic roots that grew out and tried to tangle around him. Nimbly and athletically, Naruto flipped and handsprung through the roots until they formed a veritable forest, surrounding him and boxing him in. Twisting like stalks, they seemed to enclose around Naruto and savagely crush his body. And then the roots exploded with the collective force of 80 explosive tags. Toby was quite clearly caught off guard by this, leaping away from the pieces of wood hurled away by the brutal blast, now turned into dangerous shrapnel by the force of the explosion. Bunshin Daibakua, clone great explosion. He copied that jutsu from Itachi. But when did he make the clone? Possibly when the roots started concealing him from sight. That could have been when he made the switch. And the clone had been on a S-man switch, instead of a remote hand seal trigger. Once again, Sage Mode enhanced everything, and that included every bit of the explosion that was created from the jutsu, especially since it had half of Naruto's chakra in it to begin with. But where was the real Naruto? Thinking that he felt a presence behind him, Toby turned and lashed out at seemingly a shadow. No. Quickly shifting around, he tried to quickly warp into his time-space teleport when he heard the subtle sound of metal sliding against something. A sheath. For Toby, teleporting himself took more time than making himself intangible, and he could not do both at the same time, but it was the only out he felt he had as he realized what was about to happen. Still though, what happened next neutralized his attempt to bend time and space to his will. Naruto's sword see through the vortex that his eye was creating for the teleportation and struck Toby's war mask. A gasp came from the man behind the curtain for Akatsuki as he felt the material comprising the mask crack and split diagonally due to the S. But it did not fall apart. It was a full-headed helmet, mask, and Naruto only s through the front. Oh, I'm disappointed, the blonde Blitzkrieg said, panting slightly at the toll that the steadily escalating battle was starting to take on him. No fake a pain scream to make fun of me like the last time. No be taunt. You're not gonna threaten my girlfriend, my biju, or my village. Come on, give me something here. Go on, laugh, laugh for me now. He shouted at him, spittle flying through the air with intensity. Behind the veil of the mask, the sword swing drew B. Thankfully it was unable to be seen, otherwise it would have given Naruto more optimism. Toby intended to stamp out the light of this man's eyes today, all before he ever even drained the QB from his body and ended his life. Is that it? Toby asked, once again at a standoff with Naruto as the forest burned on one side of their battlefield and a desolate land covered the other side. Are you done with your little hope spot? Are you finished flailing away at me like a child learning to swim for the first time? No way, you kidding. Naruto said with a big smile despite his situation. I just hit you. I just see through your portal and hit you. I felt it this time. Now I know I can actually do it. Miracles happen for the fortunate and desperate every once in a while, I guess. Toby said, brushing the accomplishment off. Even if the bee was annoying as it dripped down his face behind the mask, It was just a wound, nothing short of divine intervention is going to allow it to happen a second time though. Too bad for you, I don't believe in any god. I do believe in blind, dumb luck though. Naruto held up his sword that still had a bit of Tobi's bee on the end of the blade. Who said anything about miracles or a god? If there is a god, I'm pretty sure he or she's got more important things to worry about than some random battle in the woods between some prick in a mask and a jerk Jinchuriki with an eye that isn't his, and even if they didn't, I'd rather save my favor from Kami for a time when I actually need it. The lucky horseshoe is coming out of your here and now, Uzumaki. There's a thin line between luck and talent. Are you sure it was luck that let me hit you? Instead of answering, Tobi created his vortex, and this time without an undodgeable rush from Naruto coming his way before he ever started the jutsu, he was able to get into it before Naruto could rightly take another S at him to stop him. And now it was dangerous again. When Tobi was inside of his dimensional rift, Naruto couldn't sense him with Sage Mode. What happened next could come from anywhere. Focus, boy. Kyuubi urged Naruto from within, remain calm. Breathe. You are not in over your head, get that thought out of your mind this instant. You're prepared for this. You can win against this enemy. We can win. This was a cage-level battle, and though it didn't show outwardly, Kyuubi could feel the churning dark emotions inside. Naruto didn't believe his track record to be very superb with true conflicts of this magnitude. Against Itachi Uchiha and Sasuke Uchiha it had been a semi-victory as he hadn't finished off Itachi. Against Pain, or Nagato, or whatever his name was, he was destroyed with one hit. Taking his partner's words to heart, Naruto took several deep breaths and pulled out 5 seals, each with a different element inscribed on it. He paused for a moment but then proceeded to S the tags on one arm, both legs, and the last right on his C. He had to time this perfectly or he would blow his shot and be left vulnerable to Tobi. Too soon and it would be worthless and do nothing to stop Tobi's unreadable surprise attack. Too late and he'd never get the attack off before Tobi reappeared and got to him. That was, if the jutsu even worked in the first place. In Sage Mode it isn't as blatantly S as it was when you first came up with this jutsu. At least you found a productive way to use those weak seals that you came up with almost a year ago. Making several hand seals, Naruto shut his eyes and prayed that Kyuubi was correct. Otherwise this would be really stupid. With the outbreak of the war after his training for Sage Mode he didn't have time to experiment with his failed techniques that were too dangerous to use before he learned it. Every clone he'd ever tried it with, even half or with just 2 or 3 of the elements, before learning Sage Mode a horrible, screaming, painful death. It won't kill us, probably. The second he felt the slightest trace of the familiar malevolent presence of Tobi, Naruto did not hesitate and immediately made the last necessary hand seal, Senpu, Gogyu Heshioru, Sage Art, 5 elements crash. Powerful chakra surrounded Naruto's body like a flame engulfing his body with a color that shifted faster than the human eye could keep up with between red, yellow, blue, brown, and green, as if he were a walking rainbow. Screaming at the top of his lungs, Naruto threw his arms out away from his body just as Tobi appeared to gravely wound him with his gunbai. All hell then proceeded to break loose. If this KME you're coming with me. And then everything went white. XXX. Meanwhile, miles away, Konohagakure no Sato. For just a moment, the battle stopped as an awful, ear-splitting pop of a blast hit everyone's senses for a heartbeat. To everyone that felt it, it seemed as if an explosive tag had gone off right by their ears and the sky turned white over the top of the Hokage monument to the north. It took several beats, but a horrid, hot wind blew down from the top of the mountain that felt like the gates of hell had opened just a crack and carried dust, and all sorts of earthly debris down onto the village. It lasted for several minutes before it quickly S down, and in a matter of seconds it was gone, and the sky went back to the normal dusky color of sunset that it had been before instead of the divine white that it had been. Many of the shinobi that had found a lull in the battle and had been regrouping for the next inevitable engagement of street fighting with the white Zetsu clones could only look around and wonder what the hell that had been. XXX. Konan swore she'd been K. That was what she figured when Naruto had set off his jutsu. She'd been observing the battle from far enough away that she felt it had been a safe distance. It had been. She'd been high in the air, a little over a quarter of a mile away watching the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and the former true leader of Akatsuki tussle. She'd been safe from every massive attack that had been launched by them. Naruto created a damn hurricane from his mouth. He hadn't been aiming in her direction to begin with. She was safe from that powerful force of nature. Toby created a mini forest. Didn't get close to being high enough to touch her despite the lateral ground it covered. Then Naruto shouted, turned multicolored for a second, and nuked everything. That almost got her. The thing that saved her was the fact that she tried to get more distance the second she saw his body flickering with the telltale colors of the 5 elements. By the time the white flash of death shot up into the sky, she'd been far enough out of range of the horrid blast for only the shockwave to reach her and send her flying. She had to fly herself back to the site of the battle only to look down at what remained of it. Nothing. Nagato, she said to herself as she looked down at the outright devastation before flying off to find some sign of either Naruto or Toby. She spoke as if the person she was referring to could really hear her at that moment. Please hold off on summoning me back. I need to watch the rest of this battle. For you. XXX. Behind the Hokage monument, miles away from Konoha. All 5 elements mixed together at once in the most volatile concoction of elemental chakra at once, combined with senjutsu chakra. It was without a doubt the single worst idea for a safe, workable jutsu in the history of ideas for jutsu that were actually workable by human beings. Its use was entirely illogical. Insane even. A jutsu like that was untestable, so he had no idea how it would work for himself when he activated it, since all it ever did was toast his clones from the inside out pre-sage mode days. All that taught him was that under normal circumstances it would K him. That wasn't much to go on at the time. From that he knew what the jutsu did with chakra and elements. What he did not know was exactly how overloaded he would feel once all of that went on inside of him at once. There was no comparable feeling to set it against. All he knew was that for once he had way too much chakra inside of his body, and he had to get rid of it all at once or pay the price. And that was what he did. He did it the only way he figured would work in such a dire situation. He just threw it away. He did not know though that the results would be quite so explosive, and so close. He didn't know what he had been expecting, but that wasn't it. Thank the Toads for Sage Mode and the fact that it enhanced everything. His durability, and even the Kyuubi's ability to heal his body without a Jinchuriki cloak. The air was still filled with dust and smoke, and it was going to be there for miles around for quite some time. The site where Naruto activated the jutsu was now a grand crater a quarter of the size of Konoha, devoid entirely of life. This was entirely irrelevant, because Naruto was now nowhere near the crater that he had single-handedly created with the craziest jutsu he had ever come up with. The new setting for the young Junin was a few rocky pillars that looked much like a ritual place at the center of a large lake in a rocky dell. In the recently risen moonlight, Naruto clawed himself out of the lake and onto one of the rocky pillars, clothes utterly ruined by his previous actions. If he had been panting lightly before, he was heaving and puffing heavily as he crawled up onto the little s of land. That was a bad idea. That was a really bad idea. That was the worst idea I've ever had that actually worked, because he didn't K me. But man. Are you kidding? That was the greatest thing I've seen a human do in ages. The Kyuubi uncharacteristically spouted from safely inside of Naruto's body. If you could have seen that from in here, these pipes were glowing like a laser show. Ha! And that explosion. Not quite on the level of my Bijudama, but it was a damn nice try. You do realize that you LA hole in the sky, right? There isn't a single cloud in the air where we were. Why are you so excited about that? Naruto asked in a pained manner as he sat down on the rock monolith, looking over his wounds and tearing away the now useless pieces of his shirt that had been sticking to him. The sheath was still strapped over his shoulder. Damn, that thing was tough. I am always excited about destruction on an elevated scale. You know this. With a few coughs, Naruto continued, the only reason we didn't in that was because it blew us away instead of blowing us up, and we hit the water instead of hitting everything around it. I know. Maybe that Masked Bee has something of a point when he says that you're lucky. The Kyuubi stopped its sentence mid-taunt when it realized where they were. We were thrown this far away. Hey, oh irony. What are you talking about? Naruto asked, head lolling to the side as he tried to get himself back together and stand back up. His bee went cold when he felt Toby's chakra resurface as he was still in sage mode and then heard his voice once again. He was still alive, but if he could hear him, that meant that at least he couldn't get the drop on Naruto, such a familiar setting. This is the place that first bound all of our destinies together. 17 years ago. Naruto drew his sword and walked around the gigantic rock monolith to catch sight of Tobi, hands clasped in his lap, sitting on a rock that seemed like something of an altar in its appearance. He hadn't gotten away from the cataclysmic blast that Naruto had caught him in either. His cloak was ruined straight down to the sash at his waist, with only the right side of it and the sleeve remaining. Half of his mask was gone, revealing the left side of his face and spiky black hair. He was a young man, about late 20s to early 30s if he had to guesstimate. What was strange was his Sharingan. His left eye that Naruto could now clearly see was a regular Sharingan, while the other was a Mangekyo Sharingan. But there was something wrong with it. The left was completely dulled and there was no pattern in the eye. How the F did you live through that? Naruto asked, pointing the weapon at Tobi. I got you. I know I got you. You just stepped out of that portal when I triggered the jutsu and you can't teleport and be intangible at the same time. I know that. You didn't miss. You didn't slip up. Tobi admitted with a careless gesture of his hands as if he were conversing with an old acquaintance. I think I can honestly say that your timing was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Sage mode can be truly terrifying. He said with a slow clap. I honestly did not believe that you had something of that magnitude in you. Not exactly combat friendly, but wow. I underestimated you one time too many, and I got caught. So why aren't you ashes then? Once again. Tobi said, pointing to his blank Sharingan eye, you know nothing about the secrets of that eye you hold. The most powerful genjutsu that can be cast upon the user, makes illusion reality and reality illusion. In the Izanagi, the boundary between them both is removed. In the face of this dojutsu that can only be utilized by those descended from the Rikudo Sennin, even true death is an illusion. And only at the cost of eternal darkness in the eye that was used to cast it. That was enough to take whatever wind was left in Naruto's sails out of them. He did it. He did everything right. He got that masked BS to rights. He blew him away, and there was nothing he could have done about it. Nothing other than warp the general fabric of reality itself to erase his own death. Only the greatest sense of poise in the face of an enemy he still had to do battle with kept him from punching his fist through the rocky ground in fury. Are you despairing yet? Do you see how useless it is? Tobi asked. You gave me your best shot, and you almost took me out. Unfortunately for you, when you caught me using the power of my right eye, I still had a left one unused and ready to S just in case. Why the F do you have the Mangekyo in only one eye? That doesn't make any sense. Itachi had it in both. From looking at the slab in Naka Shrine he knew that when an Uchiha achieved Mangekyo Sharingan, it wasn't done the same way that an Uchiha developed the Tomo in their eyes respectively for each one. The same reason you do, more or less. That still doesn't make any sense. You're an Uchiha. Those Sharingan are both yours. One is mine, the other one belonged to another dearly departed Uchiha clan member. Long deceased, you understand. He tapped at his defunct left eye socket. It was an implant. I gave the original Sharingan I had in this eye up to a friend as a parting gift before IS. He's used it quite well from what I've seen and heard for all these years, but that's not important here. He didn't understand. Naruto didn't understand any of it. Barely anything seemed to tie together any longer. Genjutsu that literally bent reality to the extent where death could be outright averted, this random Uchiha that seemed to have come this close to bringing the world to ruin. And why? For some plan to eat the world. For what? It seemed like the callous ambition of a man far older and more jaded than a man that couldn't have been older than 30 should have had any right to be under any circumstances. This place brings back memories. Tobi said to try and continue their conversation. The last time I laid eyes on the Kyuubi in person it was here. Right after I took it out of your mother Kushina. Naruto's eyes snapped back up to Tobi and sharpened on his form. What did you say? I thought you knew. Tobi feigned complete innocence. You seem to be so attached to that monster inside of you. I figured it would have told you by now. Your mother was the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and I am the one that removed it from her. How else do you think it attacked Konoha? You bast. It was because of you. Tobi said, I used you as the tool needed to draw the Kyuubi out. Female Jinchuriki are exceptionally dangerous to have, because the seal holding the biju back weakens no matter how strong it is during a pregnant female Jinchuriki's childbirth. You were being used by others to achieve what they couldn't otherwise before you were ever born. I used you to separate your father from your weakened mother, exhausted after giving birth to you. I used that window of opportunity to take the beast from inside of Kushina Uzumaki. I outplayed the great Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. So you did kill my parents. Naruto replied, I always knew as much, but I just wanted to hear you say it yourself. Actually, I wasn't the one that did the deed. Your father sealed the Kyuubi away inside of you, so he did it to himself with the method that he used. But would you like to know how your mother I'm quite certain your lifelong partner neglected to mention the fact that removing him from her didn't kill her. The Uzumaki clan is notoriously stubborn for the difficulty to kill. Naruto recoiled slightly but kept his eyes locked firmly on Toby. Kyuubi, what the hell is he talking about? There was noticeable hesitation inside of Naruto's mind in regards to their telepathic link. The Kyuubi was either choosing its words wisely, or it was really hesitating to tell him the truth. They were going to reseal me. I had just been released of this man's Sharingan control. I felt I had no other choice than to strike preemptively to try and prevent the ritual. Kyuubi, spit it out. Don't start lying to me now. You've been AB every now and then, but you've never lied to me. I saw you, the ritual location, I knew what they were about to do, and I tried to kill you before I could be sealed within you. Kyuubi said, choosing not to mince words at this point. If he wanted it, it was time for all of this to come out. Your mother used everything she had left to bind me with her special jutsu, and half of my chakra had already been taken from me by the Shiki Fuan. My last chance was to eliminate you with a loose claw, but they shielded you with their own bee to protect you. Kushina did not have to rest that day, but I am the final reason why she did. Toby could see the expressions change on Naruto's face until he finally found the ones that he had looking for. Shock, sorrow, dejection. There they were, do you see now? You never had a chance. He explained, standing up on the smallest center monolith stone before warping to another of the higher ones that encircled it. The boy was stunned, speechless. No witty remark, no hard-nosed declarations, nothing. I didn't obtain the Kyuubi that night, but the only real threat to my ambitions the moment that the Kyuubi was sealed within you. All it did was delay me for 17 years. All this war is doing is setting me back another few months. Toby continued to say as he almost literally lorded over Naruto from his elevated position, no matter what anyone does, the Eye of the Moon plan is going to become a reality. You were just a well-placed pawn that my enemies used as an effective buffer against this for all these years. Looking down at the seal that was prominently displayed on his stomach, the one that housed the Kyuubi behind it, Naruto placed his hand over it. I can forgive the Kyuubi. Naruto said, feeling all of the air leave his body as he said it. If it was me in the same situation, trapped for most of the century inside of humans, and when I finally had a chance to be free, I was about to be sealed again, I probably would have done the same thing. You have to be kidding me. It was simply so difficult to imagine for the manipulative masked man. He wouldn't wilt. No matter what crushing revelations he hit him with. No matter how much he declared and showed that his powers outclassed Naruto's, he could not break him, the creature that is directly responsible for taking away a mother that would have loved you and raised you with an understanding and support of your position as a Jinchuriki, and you can forgive it. It seemed unthinkable. I can forgive it, because I forgave it a long time ago, for whatever it might have done. Naruto said, forming a fist against his stomach. It wasn't personal that had forced the Kyuubi to lash out. It was first outside control, and then it was mere survival that dictated its actions. The second you used the both of us as parts of your plan, even before I was born, you made the very first thing I said to it when I was 7 and first learning to work with its chakra truer than ever now. And what would that be? Toby asked with a testy edge to his voice. Enlighten me. Neither of us wanted things to be this way. One of Naruto's bar-pupiled eyes gained a feral vertical S as both his and Kyuubi's voice spoke from his mouth in unison, but we're in this together. The formation of the tiger seal came without warning and fire flew from Toby's mouth, but this was not even close to the height of the danger this jutsu possessed. The space-time distorting effects of Toby's Mangekyo Sharingan created a vortex that instantly spread the fire out over the entire dell. I've had enough of you. Kaiten, Bakufu Ranbu, fire release. Blast wave wild blast. The expansion of fire over the entire dell was instant. Even for Sage Mode's heightened reflexes and provided speed, it was too sudden for Naruto to react, and he was engulfed in the inferno before falling off of his rocky pillar into the water like a flaming projectile. You're in this together. Toby snarled as the rock walls that surrounded the lake caught on fire, surrounding their field of battle in a blaze. How cute. Two tools of war thinking that they have any say whatsoever in the direction of this world. Your only reason for existing, for the both of you, is for someone smarter than you to point you in the direction of a target and send you off to destroy it. It's all either of you are good for. For once in your miserable existences, do something right that will actually bring peace. Naruto pulled himself out of the water, upper body and face covered in burns from Toby's attack. What was that? I didn't hear that with the water in my ears. A belligerent full to the end. And it was mostly bravado. Naruto was running out of chakra, but chose to attack anyway. Jumping off of the air itself to get up to Toby's position on the rock pillar, he quickly pulled his sword out and engaged in a duel of weaponry against the mysterious Uchiha. Sword against war fan. I need a replacement Sharingan for the one I've lost today from Izanagi. Toby said as he traded strikes of chosen armaments with Naruto. The eye of Shisui Uchiha in your head is the second most valuable thing that you have in your possession right now. I think I'll take it for myself after I'm through with you here today. He taunted as he found himself in a test of strength against Naruto. Gritting his teeth in effort and anger, Naruto took advantage of the close proximity and shot his skull forward for a headbutt, but passed straight through Toby's body, forcing him to stumble out of his balance. I knew I could get you to bite, Toby said as he moved and let Naruto's body pass through him and fall. Before he could scramble back to his feet, Toby kicked him, planting the toe of his footwear into his ribs. Well, you made me work for this one. Luckily I stayed in shape. With a breath he let Naruto crawl a bit away before stepping on his heel to stop him. I'm going to take this one out of your Naruto. Let's see what you've got left, he said before stomping down on his back hard enough to break away part of the rock pillar. Naruto's grip on the Sennenki no Ken weakened, not stopping, can't quit. Another stomp to the spine destroyed more of the pillar and loosened his grip even more. I've got two. Another stomp and he let go entirely. There is no such thing as victory in this world, Toby said, grinding the sole of his sandal into Naruto's back. Your hope is just an illusion. Your symbols of light, meaningless. The people believe in these great men and women known as the Hokage, the Tsuchikage, the Mizukage, the Reikage, the Kazekage. In the end they all lessen and fade away. It's why Konoha is so insistent that each Hokage get their face inscribed on the monument. You're pathetic, Naruto mumbled face down in the rock. How could I lose? How could let myself lose to someone that doesn't believe in anything? A battle of ninjas was also a battle of ideologies. Two or more warriors putting their beliefs on the line with their lives as the wager at stake. But not tonight. The belief that your parents left in you before their lives ended, that you could do something that they couldn't, that thousands of people before you couldn't. Worthless, Toby said as more fragments of his mask fell from his face. I'm tired of people like you, thinking that all it takes to make the world a better place is a half-or idea they expect others to follow and the desire to see it through. I'm tired of this world's heroes making pitiful excuses in front of gravestones when they fail. It's better than some coward, too scared to put a name to his own actions. A person willing to watch the world burn, just so he can turn what's left of it into mindless drones. Naruto had to bite his lip to hold back a scream of pain when his shoulder was pierced from behind by a wood skewer from Toby's arm. I'm taking the misery away from this world. You'll live after I take Kyuubi from you, just like your mother would have. And I'll make you watch. I'll make you see the truth. And when you finally do, I'll free your mind from the pain and misery of this rotten world. I want to hear you say it to me, that I was right. And when you do, I'll set you free. Free in the dream that is the infinite Tsukuyomi. A dream you call it, Naruto said, trying again to get up only to be squished down harder. His fingertips brushed the handle of his sword but fumbled to get around it tight enough to hold it. How can anyone think that? More of Toby's mask crumbled away to reveal a heavily scarred right side of his face. I can be forgiving too, Naruto. After all, you're still just a boy, not quite yet a man. Suffering more than you have to for your ignorance is too cruel a fate for me to force you into. But you will understand. I'll make you. Use your imagination. Think about it. A place where no one you love will ever feel hardship or pain again. My imagination, Naruto thought to himself as his eyes began to flutter open and closed. Well, you said the yin-yang release makes the sword change, but what if one variation ain't the range? Kirabi. The words of the Hachibi Jinchuriki came to mind for some reason, from their last conversation back when they were out at sea on the way to Hai no Kuni. Their short talk about his weapon of choice, and its unique yin-yang properties. Yin-yang let, the sage, make anything real, so why not use it to keep changing your steel? Pick up the pace, don't let that power go to waste. Yin release made dreams themselves take form. Yang release made fantasies real. Using both simultaneously let them come to life, hence the creation of things that were not there before with the Sennenki no Ken. It was how the blade transformed. Show me something new. Oh, why the F not? Naruto thought to himself once more, I'm so tired, I don't even think I'd care how much chakra this thing sucked down at this point. With his spirit tempered once more to go down swinging, no matter the cost, he lifted his head off of the ground and willed the muscles in his impaled arm gripping the sword to tighten around the handle just long enough for him to do what was necessary, holding it up in front of his face. Sennen Hake, Ikijara, Millennium Release. Primary materialization. The sword glowed white for a second before it dematerialized and reformed around Naruto's body. The fear of just what this was elicited Toby to jump away from him, breaking off the spiky des into Naruto's arm so that it would remain in the wound and debilitate him. What the hell is this? Toby asked from an adjacent rock pillar as Naruto was for lack of a better term re-outfitted. What is this? Grey traditional armor comprised of many metal plates on his body such as over the front and back of his torso, covering his shoulders, stretched down to cover his thighs, and separate pieces of armor covering his forearms down to his hands with sharp-nailed gloves, shin guards, and a guard framing his face around his Hatei 8. Right on the front of the armor sat the Uzumaki clan symbol, and every few seconds, black sealer rays would randomly flicker in and out of existence somewhere on his body. Naruto's eyes popped wide open and he let out a gasp as if he'd been drowning as he pushed himself up off of the ground. Feeling the tight armor stuck to his body, he looked down at his hands and then down at his reflection in the water. He looked so old school. But more importantly, he didn't feel a crushing, leeching drain on his chakra reserves the way that he had whenever he trained with it in the past and the way he had in the middle of battles when he'd used the Millennium Gauntlets. You're welcome. You. Sage mode more specifically, but since I'm the one running it I would say yes, me. How do you feel? Fast. Naruto figured as he couldn't even feel the weight of what looked like really sleek plate and scale armor, lighter than a feather. Ugh. Wait. He cringed before reaching for his left shoulder underneath the plate there and slowly pulling out a wooden spike that he tossed away. Cute. Toby said as he had been watching all of this, wondering just what was going on. This isn't the jutsu you used to beat Kakazu. Not quite. Something's different about it. I thought that one only covered your shins and forearms. I did what you said. Naruto replied, ignoring the bee dripping freely from his wound underneath the armor. I used my imagination. I laid there and I thought about what you wanted me to. And that kind of future sucks. If everything was always perfect and nothing ever went wrong, how would you ever enjoy anything? So instead of thinking about how stupid your idea is, I thought about something more useful, and you're looking at it more or less. Toby rolled his eyes and formed a hand seal, and I'm supposed to be afraid and think you have more of a chance than you did a moment ago just because you got a wardrobe upgrade. Yes. Let it just be known right now that though it has been mentioned before, it bears repeating. Sage mode enhances everything. The eye of Toby went to work just as he saw a single muscle of Naruto twitch in his direction, making him intangible to avoid another attack coming his way from the headstrong young ninja in the form of a high-speed body flicker. Only it didn't work this time, and Naruto's fist sank into Toby's right jaw, rattling his skull and sending him rocketing across the surface of the lake water, finally crashing to a rest against the rocky shore where his body left an imprint. He hit me. I hit him. Naruto echoed without hearing Toby say it from where he'd been standing in turn. He had to look down at his own armored fist and flex his fingers to readily accept it. Right. I just wouldn't have felt right winning this fight without punching that guy in the face just once. Toby pulled himself up and out, standing back up with a heavily bruised, bead cheek and see under his right eye. That armor. Might as well have been the sword, all over his body. And he wasn't wearing down from simply wearing it. I hate that clan. I really do. He would not get that close again. Fukahuan, Kai, fire sealing method, release. Naruto's left arm up to the forearm was covered in black flames before he made a tiger seal with his right hand and lashed out with a punch using his left, Senpu, Yami and no Ryu, Sage Art, Dragon of the Darkness Flame. A mammoth open-moored dragon the size of 12 men formed and flew straight across the lake at Toby, roaring like the general article, or was that the sound of the flames burning together? He uses the Amaterasu he sealed from Itachi in his arm like a pilot light. Brilliant. But it's still too slow. Toby said to himself before opening up a vortex with his right eye, absorbing the black dragon right into it. You're going to like this one though. In the same vein, he turned it right back around and ejected it, sending it flying right back at Naruto with double the speed. And did it get bigger? Naruto didn't stick around to find out, bending his legs and pumping every bit of power he could to them before jumping up, propelling himself higher up into the air with an outburst of wind chakra from the soles of his feet. Down below he watched the flames from the dragon fly toward Toby. The wily Uchiha teleported to the other side of the lake and waited for the dragon to reach that side just so he could absorb it again into his right eye and fire it back out at an airborne Naruto, once again faster and larger than it had been previously. That was fine though, he had all of the skies to play with in order to evade it. You're not the only one that can create diversions with massive ninjutsu, Naruto. Above Naruto's head he looked up only to see Toby looking down on him. He teleported directly above him using the S-Black Amaterasu dragon as something to capture and keep Naruto's attention for long enough to ignore the disappearance of his chakra signature, if only for just a moment. Out of reflex, Naruto shot a fist up to punch him, but Toby stomped down on it to block, anticipating Naruto's physical counter-reaction. You're mine, Toby said as Naruto felt himself getting absorbed into Toby's eye dimension. I'll save you here for later. At least I'll have the Kyuubi stored in my pocket where I can save him for last. Naruto quickly created a cage bunchen that shoved him away as hard as it could, taking his place in getting sucked into Toby's eye. Falling down from the sky, Naruto twisted his body only to next have to face his originally created Amaterasu dragon. With a set of hand seals he held out his left arm as the seals spread back over it, Fukahuan, fire sealing method. Like a hyper-powered vacuum, Naruto sucked every speck of the flames back into his arm from whence they came. Continuing onto the water, he flipped through and expelling wind chakra through his feet created a windfall as he neatly landed back on the surface of the lake. Immediately upon landing, Naruto created a grossly oversized Rasengan and S it down on the surface of the water just as Toby appeared out of his time-space vortex behind him ready to strike. The unexpected move blew the water sky high. It didn't do much to deter Toby's attempt to attack, as he still swung his war fan and created enough wind with the attack to blow away the water that Naruto had kicked up to conceal himself. He soon wished that he hadn't as he then found 6 Narutos holding larger Rasengan variations, closing in on him from all sides and above, Ryushutsu Odama Rasengan, Zero Illusion Great Ball Rasengan. Forming small flames on each finger of one hand, Toby S it on the surface of the water, creating a cylindrical barrier around his own body, Uchiha Kaingen, Uchiha Flame Battle Encampment. Every Naruto that touched the barrier burst into flames upon contact, destroying all of them except for the original who took a quick dive underwater and resurfaced immediately only to get punched in the face by Toby's follow-up attack. The hit sent Naruto spinning away on the surface of the water like a top until he stopped and chopped the water, splitting it straight to the bottom of the lake in Toby's direction. He didn't move an inch and simply made himself intangible to dodge. It's still not going to work like that. It's worthless. Even with that Sharingan, you're still blind. You have no idea how powerful that eye is, do you? You don't even use Shisui's Mangekyu. This isn't a Mangekyu Sharingan Ayua. Wasn't it? If it was, how the hell did he even find out or not? Such a fool. Naruto glared at him, but his face suddenly changed as if he realized something. Something incredibly relevant and vital. It was only for a flash though, as he schooled his features thoroughly, and Toby took it as Naruto merely being surprised that he'd forgotten he could phase through basically anything he could throw at him aside from physical contact. The Kyuubi was connected to Naruto and knew full well what Naruto had been affected by. Do you think it can work? Are you sure what you saw was real? I can see through genjutsu, so it can't be an illusion. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I've got to make it count if it will. A quick hand seal formed 5 clones and 3 of them went forward at Toby to engage him in close. They could hit him too, just like their creator, thus Toby was forced to defend himself. Kaiten, Hausenka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Toby leapt back and peppered the clones with fireballs, concealing shuriken within them for an added punch that did the trick in dispelling their armored forms. Now what? The sound of a clear bell ringing filled the air and his eyes widened at the sight of Naruto and his clones holding up a gigantic Rasengan variation with 4 wind points enshrouding it, giving it the appearance of a shuriken. This is it. Naruto and his clones cried as one as the extras dispelled. The original took aim and let it fly like a buzzsaw, Futen, Raisin Shuriken, Wind Release, Spiraling Shuriken. Full. Toby stood in place, forcing his body to become intangible even as the speedy attack landed right at his feet and expanded in a massive, devastating wind sphere. All Naruto did was stand there and watch, a bead of sweat trickling down his face from underneath his faceguard as he waited with bated breath for the results to show themselves. The wind sphere s down, though the waters of the lake continued to shake violently. But standing there, still entirely unfazed, was Toby. Instead, he just looked disappointed, like a master that caught its trained puppy peeing on the floor indoors. Was that really worth the waste? You didn't do anything, even with all of that FO. His lecture fell short when B spurted out of his mouth like a geyser. What? His internal organs had somehow been turned to slurry and he could no longer stand up. What the hell had happened to him? He'd gone intangible. He avoided the Raisin Shuriken. He knew he had. Let's finish this, Naruto muttered to himself, and the Kyubi, Fukahuan, Kai, fire sealing method. Release. His left arm was engulfed in the horrid black flames of Amaterasu one more time. You aren't dodging this no matter what you do. One way or another you're gonna burn. That insolent little. I won't let you. Toby shouted at the top of his lungs, B pouring from his mouth and nose. Even his right eye was beginning to be from whatever Naruto had done. I've lost too much. I've seen how dark this world is. It's not fair. I want a world where I have Rin back. Where things can be like they used to be without any of the war. The fighting. The system of the shinobi is broken. It's a sick joke. In the palm of Naruto's left hand, surrounded by the flames, he held a Rasengan that looked like a dark will-o'-the-wisp. Kuroihoshi Rasengan, Black Star Rasengan. You won't touch me with that. Toby insisted, willing himself to stand up one more time. Want to bet? Naruto asked before dashing forward for the finishing strike. But much like Toby said, he leaned his body far enough out of the way to avoid touching any other part of Naruto's body than the Rasengan and made his torso intangible to make the attack miss. I'm finished with you. Toby's right hand turned into a wicked blade as he let Naruto move through and past him. But still inexplicably, one more time he ejected B through his mouth and found his upper body engulfed in black flames, but it dissipated the moment he became solid again. The pain and the injuries from the Rasengan itself did not, how? It was his complete defeat. But he was not going to rest there. No. He had to keep living. He had to keep fighting for the Eye of the Moon plan. His perfect world. Before Naruto could stop his momentum and turn back around to strike at him, Toby had retreated into the vortex that his eye could create in an endeavor to teleport away. And there was nothing Naruto could do about it. From there, you're finished. XXX. Space-time dimension. Toby appeared in a swirling vortex, set in an entirely different plane of existence. An endless void of black, only populated by an infinite number of rectangular prism platforms of different heights and sizes. Upon putting his feet on the surface of one, he fell to his hand and knees, vomiting B as his body nursed the burns from Naruto's Amaterasu flames. His right side was slowly regenerating the damage wrought upon it, but he was still gravely wounded. How did I lose to him? Toby said as he shakily held himself up on all fours. Damn. Damn. Damn it. His last cry was punctuated by a Rasengan S into the back of his N, pounding him into one of the indestructible prism that made up the ground of the dimension. He did not move again as B pulled underneath his face. Naruto let the Rasengan dissipate and stood over Toby for a long time before stooping down and feeling for a pulse. He received none. From the corner of Toby's eye, he could swear that he saw the beginnings of a tear forming. You lost because you underestimated me, even after everything that happened. Naruto said, I could never lose to someone whose drive and heart is a long time ago. The victorious blonde just stared down at him before unsealing the Amaterasu flames on his left arm. He touched Toby's body and watched the black flames slowly engulf his body and burn the corpse. He couldn't be too safe, to ensure that the man really did s. The body cooked, and burned to ashes. And the E vanished in a puff of smoke with only one thought in mind that he would leave to his original creator to ponder on in his stead. Why didn't he use Izanagi with his last Sharingan to cheat death? Yes, he would have been blind, and the Sharingan powers would have been gone, but he would have survived to possibly fight some way somehow. This really had been a man with no hope left in the world. Toby's last thoughts were never aired or put into words before his lights went out for good. Rin, Kakashi. XXX. Real world, with Naruto. A coordinated attack from the inside out. That was how the deed was finally done. The clone that Toby earlier absorbed into his dimension didn't dispel to return the unused chakra to Naruto. It remained behind, wondering where it was, trying to find a way out just in case, and trying to pick up all that it could about its settings. When it saw Toby's body randomly appear out of nowhere, it figured something was wrong, but saw that it was real enough to touch. Thus the message was sent by a second created clone from the first back to the original, an understanding was reached, and the plan was set. The original would goad the original into intangibility, while the one inside would have a devastating attack prepared for the next time an opening presented itself, and the opening presented itself twice. The oversight was all Toby's, thinking that Naruto's clones were so expendable that he could do what he did with no negative repercussions. The backlash from his clone finally dispelling from Toby's dimension hit Naruto's senses, and the weight of the world felt like it lifted off of his shoulders. A part of him wanted to laugh. He'd done it. He'd K the person that had set into motion the plans that had brought the world to total war. The man that had doomed his parents, and cursed him and the QB to be paired with one another for the foreseeable future. He kept thinking that it was all just a trick. That any moment, Toby would pop up out of his pocket dimension and drag his soul to hell or something. But it never came. And it was so hard for it to sink in. There was only one thing that felt right at the moment. Rag. Naruto turned his head to the sky, shouted at the top of his lungs, his voice able to be heard for miles around, possibly even back in Konoha. Slowly, his head turned up in the air to stare at a tiny figure that he could see superimposed against the moon. The wings of the angel were a telltale sign of who he was looking at, even if he didn't have the clarity of vision to distinguish who it was. So his feud of a conflict had a spectator the entire time. Well, there was nothing he could do about it now. Toby had been the priority. If nothing else, he hoped she enjoyed the show. But in the meantime, he had a message to send. Conan. Naruto howled to the sky, knowing that she could hear him, knowing that she was listening and could damn near see the look in his eyes from even her height. Tell Peinor Nagato or yo. God. Or whatever the hell you want to call him. Tell him he's next. One moment she was up in the sky looking down at him and narrowing her eyes, probably for blasphemy, or something along those lines, and the next moment she had disappeared in a puff of smoke. Good. She'd give him the message while it was still fresh. Perfect. He wanted him to know just what he was going to get, to end all of it once and for all. But for now, sleep. When Naruto was found the next morning by a search party that could be spared from the ongoing but winding down battle for Konoha, he was floating back first on the water, back in his previous tattered clothes, out of sage mode, clutching the Senenki no Ken in his right hand with an iron grip, and a small smile on his face. Good work, twerp. And with that, the QB had to get some rest as well. Using sage mode was a drain even for it after the state of being ended, the things I put myself through, for someone I'm supposed to hate. Jutsu list. Senpu, Gogyu Heshioru, Sage Art, 5 Elements Crash. S-Rank Ninjutsu, Fuinjutsu, Kinjutsu, Senjutsu. All ranges. First requires Fuinjutsu, Genso Kyushu, Sealing Technique, Elemental Absorption, a jutsu that allows one to store elemental chakra in its transformed state for later use at activation. Gogyu Heshioru can be perceived as the pinnacle of nature transformation techniques due to the potential elemental combinations that it can offer, including all 5 at once. However, as one is using their body as a medium for all of the different elements to circulate evenly at once, this is a highly unstable jutsu that will KO a normal shinobi that does not possess the method to balance it all out. Even with the means to the necessary balance, without the finest, perfect chakra control using all 5 elements at once can only be done temporarily before the jutsu goes haywire and a mortal backlash is given. Extremely irresponsible and reckless in origin, creation, method of and intent in every conceivable way thought possible. May possibly be the most dangerous jutsu, non-S, in existence for both user and targets. Ryushutsu Odama Rasengan, Zero Illusion Great Ball Rasengan. Ninjutsu, Senjutsu, Offensive. Using the enhanced speed and reflexes of Sage Mode and the predictive capabilities of the Sharingan to cover for any lapses in the formation, the user boxes in the opponent with several clones and uses Rasengan to eliminate all chances of escaping attack. Kuroihoshi Rasengan, Black Star Rasengan. Ninjutsu, Senjutsu, Offensive. Around the concentrated power of the Rasengan, the black flames of Amaterasu form a shell of unquenchable flames around the jutsu to burn as well as pulverize for added devastation. Still, it is merely a melee ninjutsu like many other Rasengan variations. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.